Okay, so we're diving right in. This one's pretty heavy, actually.
Oh, yeah.
A fishing vessel, partially submerged, drifting off the coast of St. Kitts and Nevis. 19 bodies. And get this,
Yeah.
they were so decomposed that figuring out who they were is, well,
It's a huge challenge.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to wonder, what happened to these people?
Right.
Where did they even come from? Well, we're using this CBS News article to try and piece it together.
And this is what makes it really interesting.
What's that?
Authorities think that boat started its journey all the way in West Africa. That's not exactly a quick trip to the Caribbean, is it?
No, definitely not. And it just makes you think, doesn't it, about how far people will go, the risks they'll take,
Yeah.
for a shot at a different life. It's like there are so many stories out there happening on the ocean that we just never hear about.
Yeah, absolutely. And tragically, this isn't even a one-off thing. Like, remember back in August, 14 bodies, also decomposed, found on an abandoned boat in the Dominican Republic.
Right.
And the documents they found, they suggested those people were from Senegal and Mauritania.
That's just awful. So many questions come up,
Yeah.
Is this happening more and more? What's pushing people to make these dangerous trips in the first place?
It's tough to say for sure if it's actually increasing. The records for these kinds of incidents aren't always, well, let's just say they aren't the best. But there are a few things that might explain why we're seeing more of these tragedies. Like, just think about the sheer desperation that makes someone risk everything for a chance at a better life. They could be running from war, poverty, or just persecution, right? And they're willing to face incredible danger, horrible conditions, just for the hope of reaching some kind of safety, some kind of opportunity.
You have to wonder, though, how desperate do you have to be to trust smugglers?
Right.
To be packed into an overcrowded boat, barely any food or water.
Yeah. And then there's the whole human trafficking side of things too, right? That's a real horrific crime. Moving people illegally across borders, often by sea. These victims, they're just so vulnerable, and the journeys so secretive. It makes tracking these events, providing help, so much harder.
Yeah. And of course, we can't forget about the chance of just plain accidents at sea. Fishing, that's dangerous work no matter where you are.
Absolutely. And in some parts of the world, let's just say safety rules aren't as strict, maybe not enforced as well.
And when these things happen way out at sea, no one around to see, limited ways to call for help.
They might just never get reported. It's a pretty stark reminder of how vast and unforgiving the ocean can be.
Yeah, no kidding. This case, with all its mysteries, it really shows how hard it is for investigators to figure out what went down.
Definitely.
Like the bodies being so decomposed, it makes identification practically impossible.
Right.
And if there's no paperwork, no records, tracing where they came from,
It's almost impossible, yeah.
it's like a puzzle with most of the pieces missing.
Exactly. And then you add in the whole international aspect, that just throws in another layer of complications. Countries need to cooperate for these investigations, but that can be a whole mess. Political differences, bureaucracy, lack of resources, you name it.
So we've got this tragic discovery, a bunch of possible explanations, and a whole lot of unanswered questions. But this isn't just about 19 bodies found drifting. It's like a window into something bigger,
Yeah.
Desperation, exploitation, and these struggles happening all over the oceans that we just don't see.
I think you've hit it right on the head there. It forces us to look at some really uncomfortable truths about our world. Like, what does it say about global inequality when people are willing to risk their lives like that
Right.
on such dangerous journeys? How can we fix the things that drive people to such desperation? Those are some really tough questions that we need to look at. And maybe, just maybe, as tragic as this case is, it can be that little push to really think about these things and maybe even do something about them.
You're absolutely right. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the enormity of it all. But it's important to remember that behind the numbers, behind the statistics, there are real people, individual human stories, stories of hope, of resilience, and unfortunately, too often, stories of loss. So we really want to encourage you, our listeners, to dive deeper into this. Learn more about what maritime migration really is, the dangers involved, and all the complex things that lead to these truly heartbreaking situations.
Yeah, I second that.
So that's it for this deep dive.
It's a heavy one.
It is. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.